you see friends and you say, oh, okay, they didn't fall off the edge.
Yeah. Yeah.
We'll pull that out here, hopefully. And so there's these little, moments that put the dictator wannabes back on their heels.
Yeah.
And as long as we continue the drumbeat and just keep going. Leaders don't have to be the president. Leaders are everywhere, and you just have to keep saying it, and you just have to keep talking it.
If I were to underline what we're talking about here is this concept that whether you're a CEO of a company or the president of the country, you have your scope of responsibility is limited to your company or to your nation. But in reality, you have a much broader concept, and we're talking about corporate social responsibility, which can kind of lead us into the DIE issue. I think we need to understand that if we want to have a peaceful, equitable, global system in the future, you need to understand that your behavior on a whole has impact on others as well.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And there's a role for everybody in the greater system. And in some cases, it's the government making it a profitable profitable opportunity for business to take care of the environment.
Yeah.
Because if it's not in their self-interest, we need to make it in their self-interest. So there's a give and take in all of that.
Yeah.
But everyone has a responsibility.
Now, I know that one of the great passions in your life has been another part, which I think a lot of leaders also in the corporate world are having to address. I mentioned the word corporate social responsibility. Taking it a step further, you have the Sustainable Development Goals, which is more about things. Sometimes those are with people, but it's kind of a KPI thing. And then the other thing that I think a lot of more conservatives kind of have an issue with is the whole concept of diversity, inclusion, and equity. And you have a background in this. I'd love to hear what you have to say. Why is it important? Why do we need it? What are some of the things that are making it difficult to digest for some people, and where do we need to go with it?
I think if you've ever had to hear me speak, you would hear this phrase all the time. The ash heap of history is strewn with blonde-haired, blue-eyed armies. And the point there is that our army, our military in the United States is the strongest in the world because it is diverse. It's diverse in thought, it's diverse in geography, it's diverse in ethnicity, it's diverse in all of these different ways because there's power in diversity. And commercial business figured this out first. They figured out that, hey, if I'm going to sell to a diverse audience, I better have diversity in my decision making. And that was pure profit driven. Okay. So I think that it's from a power perspective, not from let's give somebody that's not qualified an opportunity because they're Hispanic or African American or a woman or whatever. It's that we see the power of that. And inclusion is basically bringing those voices in to be heard. Don't exclude them. Let them be heard because they're going to have some opinions that may upset you, but they're going to have some thoughts that you're going to say, whoa, I didn't even think about that. That's a great idea. And finally, equity is, in my view, it's just, you've got to treat everybody at the same standard. Okay. And we went through this when we opened positions in the military for women. The standard is the standard. I don't care if you're green. I don't care if you're 12 foot tall, whatever it is. This is the standard. You meet the standard, welcome. Please, welcome. So I think I look at it from a power standpoint. And unfortunately, as you were pointing out about socialism, DE&I has become just a tag. I think most people that use it in a negative context don't even know what it means.
They've transformed it into an ad hominem, an abusive one. Yeah,
absolutely. It's sort of like the whole woke thing.
Yeah. Which, I mean, like, who doesn't want to be awake? But it's all of a sudden it's a positive thing has become a negative thing, right?
Yeah. Even if you're from that viewpoint, take the military side of it. I want to know my enemy. I want to know everything about my enemy. I want to know what makes them think the way they think. As being woke means I want to know where you came from, how we didn't treat you correctly, or how something else had occurred, how your life has been shaped. That brings power to all of us. And oh, by the way, the very simplest of things that we all learned in political science and history is destined to repeat itself. So we have to make sure that we don't do that in many cases.
Yeah. I think I would agree with you on many things. I think sometimes also that the liberal mindset is, I sometimes wonder whether the extreme liberal left and the extreme right are working together. You know what I mean? I'm going to give you an example of DEI, and I don't want to be disrespectful. I think you know me well enough that I don't have an issue treating everybody or seeing everyone the same. I don't think anybody's above prejudice, but I think on a whole, I've got a pretty good handle on it. I don't really care I judge people more on other things than their ethnicity or something like that, or their gender. But I think one thing that has triggered, especially those who have more and more conservative mindset, and I think also the rational simple citizen, is that DEI has I think the main vehicle that we've used to communicate it has been the whole transgender or multi-gender thing, right? Which for the normal human being, I can completely empathize with them and say, listen, for how many thousands of years have we been in agreement that there's two genders, and now we're talking about and I often also think that the whole gender discussion is sometimes also disrespectful towards other minorities that have had to fight much longer for the right to be seen and respected and treated equal. I'm talking about the gay community, and I'm not going to give you the whole rainbow. I'm going to keep it simple, because maybe I'm a simpleton too. Women, right? Certain minorities, if they be Latino or African American or Black, whatever they prefer to be called. But it seems like, and I'm going to be careful here, because I think that I think it's difficult to have a real serious conversation with them where you don't reflect on both sides. Dave Chappelle, right? Dave Chappelle was attacked massively for some of his jokes about transgenderism, but there was a little bit of validity to some of his statements. And one of his jokes that I think really hit home was, we were fighting for transgenderism, and then we took a white man and gave him Woman of the Year. And that person happens to be an arch right-wing nut job who used to be an athlete. Okay. Yeah. I thought that was a poignant statement. I find, and once again, I don't, for me, transgenderism, I guess it's an issue, but for me, it's not an issue. If I meet somebody who's transgender and they see themselves in the wrong body, I don't have a problem with that. They want me to call them she, I don't have a problem. If they want to be called by a woman's name, if they want to, I don't have a problem with that. But I think where the more conservative has is because that's a good thing. That's a good straw man that they can beat the living hell out of, and can beat the fear. And I think this is what I'm actually trying to say. I think the problem where we've kind of not been serving ourselves when it comes to DIE is that, once again, transgenders have the same rights as everybody else, but how much of the population do they really make up? 0.001%. I don't know what the number. I don't want to downplay them. I think it's a valid thing, and I really am 100% for their rights. But I think what has pissed a lot of people in the majority off, whether I'm going to use this terrible epithet of, if I'm poor white trash that lives in a trailer park, or I'm otherwise disenfranchised,